So when you're sending an email, you have all of these options up here at the top. So your message tab. This is where you can format your message. You guys have seen this before, right? Your font group, copy paste, you can attach, you can create a link. Shortcut key for hyperlink is Control K. Now we've not taught, well, actually we did talk about a hyperlink, I believe, in PowerPoint. We definitely did in Word, but we're going to talk about creating a hyperlink when we create our signatures. So hold tight on that. So in your message tab, these are all different ways that you can format your message, attach things, request a signature. If you don't have Adobe Acrobat, which you guys probably don't, you probably don't have this, but I do because I subscribe to Adobe Sign. So when you guys signed your enrollment agreements, Carmen sent that through Adobe Sign. And all you had to do was just sign and date and finish. And that was it. You didn't have to print anything. You didn't have to grab a pen, sign, scan it back to your printer, put it back into your computer, send it back as an attachment. It's a beautiful thing. So you guys probably don't have that. Tags. There are times where you might want to tag an email or send it as high importance. Dictate, this is great because this will, you just talk and it types for you, just like your cell phone. The editor, this is your spell and grammar check and things like that. And your immersive reader is pretty cool because I can come over here and I can say focus on one line at a time. See that? And it'll help me visually. It'll help me stick to just reading one thing at a time. So anybody with any kind of visual challenges, this is really cool. So then you have the insert tab. Pretty obvious, right? There's a lot of great things that you can insert into an email in Outlook. And we will talk about some of these things. The options menu. If you go to the options menu, when you are composing an email, you can change the theme of the email if you want. So it'll change the colors. So we talked about themes when we were in PowerPoint. And we talked about when you pick a theme is colors, font, right? Font style, font size, font color, different things like that in a bundled theme. So if you click the drop down on themes and you hover over, like facet, like you can hover over any of these and it'll tell you what the theme is. And just know that each theme has its own bundle of colors and font styles and sizes and colors and things like that. So, and then you can change the page color. So you can do a solid background color instead of your stationery. So if I go back to no color, it's going to take my stationery away. And I had the speckled stationery. And so if I choose no color, then it'll just go back to just a white background. Then you have your, showing your BCC, right? And then your encryption. So I would have to go into the admin panel and set specific settings for encryption on emails. So the encryption will come in handy. This is fairly new within the last couple of years that Microsoft added this feature, and it is definitely a necessity. From what I hear, from what I understand, and I don't know the truth to this, but if you, in the subject line, if you put the word encrypt in brackets first, and then what the subject is, then that will automatically encrypt an email. Only in Outlook, though. You can't do this in Google Mail. So in the tracking group, this is where you've got your voting buttons and request a delivery receipt and a read receipt. Now, the voting buttons are a little wonky. I'm not a huge fan of the voting buttons. I've used them before, but now Microsoft has added polls. When I go over to my Office Pro staffing email, I don't have the full functionality that I do with the computer training account. So when I go over to Access Computer Training's inbox, right? So I just switched over to the Access Computer Training emails inbox and I go to new, then I do have the poll. So it depends on the account as well. So when I go to my insert tab, when I'm in a newly composed email, that poll is right here and you can kind of see it. It looks like bars. And so that's really cool too. And actually for this exercise, I think I am going to stick with my Access Computer Training email because it puts me in the same company as you guys. So you have polls and things like that. Polls is actually kind of taken the place of voting buttons, and it's much, much easier to do a poll now. So we will play a little bit around with that today. In a newly composed email, in that options menu, the voting buttons, it's still there, but the polls is easier because polls works with Microsoft Forms. And forms, if you guys have ever done like a Google form or a Survey Monkey or anything like that, then you kind of know what that is all about. And it's super simple. And so they've really simplified it. The voting buttons is wonky and a little bit confusing. So polls is way easier. And so the read receipt and delivery receipt, let me explain the difference. When an email gets delivered, it goes out of your outbox, it goes into the other person's inbox, and it was delivered successfully. You'll get an email saying your email that you sent to this person is now sitting in their inbox. But to me, I'm like, okay, but that doesn't really guarantee that they're going to read it, right? Or I don't really know. If it's sitting in their inbox, great, but did they read it? And so the read receipt is when it's in their inbox and they actually click on the email and open it. Now, whether they actually read it or not, but at least they clicked it, they clicked on it and they opened it. And so the read receipt, when that happens, will kick back an email to you with like a little check mark. It's like a little green check mark to say, yes, this person opened your email. And so if it's, a time off request to your boss and you do a read receipt, and then, you take a day off and they're like, where are you? And you're like, and they're like, I never gave you permission. And like, yeah, you did actually. I requested it. You read it. Obviously, you want to get a reply from them, but you can say, no, you got that email and you read it. And here's the receipt. And then you have the more options group. And again, save the sent item to which folder, right? So if you are going to save your sent emails, you can choose to change the folder that you save it in. I don't know why you would do that because there is a standard sent folder that comes with your emails that is a default folder. And that's where all your sent emails go. And I don't know that I would ever change that. Delay delivery, right? So that same thing, that delay delivery, direct replies to. So right here in the more options menu, you also have a dialog box launcher. If you click on that, it takes you back to the same exact menu. And one of the things I skimmed over real quick was if you're going to send this email. So let's just say your boss says to you, can you send out an email to the team and ask them where they want to have the company outing, but send the replies back to me because I want to keep track of it. So this is where you can do that. Check that box, have the replies sent back to, and who are you having it sent back to? Yourself, which you really don't have to do that, right? Or if you select names right here, it'll take you back to your contact list where you can choose somebody from the company to have the reply sent back to. Your global address list is your company-wide address book. And so notice everybody in my address list is accesscomputertraining.com. So when we get to contacts, we'll talk more about the different types of address lists. So you can do that there. Have replies sent to somebody else so you don't have to deal with it. So even though the dialog box launchers take you to this extra menu, really between this group and this group here, the tracking group and the more options group, you still have some of those features, those options. So sometimes you don't even have to go there. Formatting text. When you are in a newly composed email, pretty basic stuff, right? You guys know how to format font and, formatting your alignments and bullets and things like that. So if I click into the body of the email, this stuff opens up where I can, adjust my font color, whatever, and then, add some bulleted lists if I need to in the review tab. So this is where like your proofreading would be, your language. So the cool thing is you can actually change the language. So this language actually works too when you receive an email. So if you were to receive an email in a different language, you can actually translate it back to English, and then you can reply in English and translate that back into Spanish and then send it. In the review tab, the read aloud, so that's kind of cool too. This is where it's kind of the opposite of dictate.
So if I were to type something here, I can change the language.
Hold on.
So if I were to type something here, I can change the language. Kristen Pelletier.
All right, you can stop. So the read aloud is great for somebody that maybe might have some visual challenges. It's really good. So the spelling and grammar too, the spell check has been replaced by this editor. And the editor, if you click on the editor over here on the right, it'll pop up the panel, the editor panel on the right side, and it'll tell you if there are some issues with your content of what you're typing in the body of the email. And so if there's spelling issues, so right now it's basically saying that word so at the beginning of this sentence has a double blue solid underline. And typically what that means is that there's some grammar issues. And we probably already know all of us English people, right? We know you don't start a sentence with so. But we do now, kind of. Like, I think the Gen Zs have taken over and they've changed all the rules, which is my daughter's generation. And so I think it's right here. It's saying, yeah, you do have an issue with grammar. And I can see what it is. So it's giving me a hard time about the word, adding the word so at the beginning of the sentence. If I click grammar, right there. So it's saying, yeah, this is a problem. Here's my suggestion. So it's not necessarily that I started the sentence with the word so, but it's telling me I need a comma after it. And so I can take that suggestion if I want, and it'll change it for me. And then it'll tell me, you're good to go. Nothing else on this, in this content. There's nothing wrong. They're good. So it's kind of cool. You could keep that editor panel on if you want. And as you're typing, it will, and you can adjust it to the width of it. But as you're typing, it will provide you different suggestions for not only spelling errors and grammar errors, but right here, clarity, conciseness, things like that. Are you using the right word? Like instead of the word steward or stewardess, we call them flight attendants now. So sometimes you might see, yeah, in today's world, we don't call them stewardesses anymore. We call them flight attendants, right? So you might see an option or suggestion to change that word from stewardess to flight attendant, things like that. So it's pretty cool. It really is. And so it really does help us with our English. We really don't even need a high school education anymore, honestly, because it does it all for you, which is awesome. And then that editor panel, you can always close out of it too, if you want to. So the review tab is all about, think about that as being like your proofreader. You have thesaurus giving you different words that mean the same thing. So you're not constantly saying the same word over, like excellent, excellent, excellent. I see that a lot in resumes, the word excellent. And so there are other words than excellent, and the thesaurus comes in handy for that kind of thing. And these features are all in Word as well. And then you have the developer tab. The developer tab is in where you customize your ribbon. So the developer tab is a little bit different on the features that you have in a developer tab when you're in Outlook versus Word. The same thing with Excel. The developer tab in Excel has different commands, different features. And so in here, I think we talked a little bit yesterday about the add-ins and stuff. If you click on the COM add-ins, you can see what add-ins you already have. And so you can turn them off. You can remove them if you want. And then there's a little add button right there where if you did have other admins installed, you could add those as well. And honestly, I've never worked in the developer tab in Outlook. So I'm going to design a form, design a form. If you don't have the developer tab, you can add it.